Well, welcome to the Better Birth podcast. I'm super excited to have today's guest. You're our very first lactation consultant. So we have Candice Echeverria,
Yes, you did it.
an international board certified lactation consultant in
Yes.
LA. And I
Yes.
love that your shirt has boobs on it and that you brought boobs today.
I take all the boobs with me everywhere.
Yeah,
How
no,
can I
I
not
love
wear a
that.
boob shirt today? Of course I did.
Awesome. Well, do you want to take a bit of time to chat about your practice and just like your history and your career?
Sure. I first graduated with a BS in psychology,
Cool.
with an emphasis on children, child development and the family. I have a big passion for helping parents. And then having my own children, obviously going through my own struggles with prenatal issues and pregnancy complications, then into breastfeeding, postpartum depression. I became really passionate while having my second child about breastfeeding specifically. My first journey was not very pleasant. I
Mm,
didn't know enough about it to really feel successful. So, going into my second pregnancy, that was like the basis of all of my research and education. And
mm.
then found out from a friend who was having a baby at the same time that this was like a thing that you could
Yeah.
do. You could actually help women specifically with breastfeeding. So then I went on to get my certified breastfeeding specialist certification through Lactation
Cool.
Education Resources. And I worked as a CBS for about 8 years before finally getting my board certification, which was like one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. So happy that that part of the journey is over, and I am now in IBCLC, and I have a successful private practice here in Los Angeles. And I literally will drive to the ends of the earth to help any mom who is struggling with breastfeeding. So it's my passion. I love what I do. I never ever saw myself doing this.
Yeah.
But I think just having my own babies has really shaped my entire life. It's everything that I do, and it's what I focus on every day. And I wear boobs on my shirt.
That's awesome. So you chatted about how your first breastfeeding journey was unpleasant. What in particular made breastfeeding unpleasant?
um, I think I I wasn't expecting it to be difficult,
Hmm.
which I think is a lot of people's stories. We go into this feeling really prepared for birth, taking all the hospital classes, getting the breastfeeding basics class done
Right.
per your OBGYN. You're sent to this class and you really go into it feeling like, okay, what's the hardest thing about feeding my kid? Like, it's
Hmm.
not going to be that big of a deal. Everybody does it. We've been doing it for ages. Um, but I wasn't expecting it to be so hard. And I simply just didn't have the education or the knowledge or the support to
Hmm.
shift things back to where I wanted them to be once they started going left, basically.
Right.
Um, my daughter, I had to go back to work really early. And I think
Mm.
that that really impacted my journey. I was probably already suffering from some postpartum depression.
Mm.
And going back to work really was just terrifying.
Yeah. How
um,
early did you have to go back?
at about 3 months.
Okay.
So I was not prepared to be away from my daughter at all. And I
Yeah.
didn't have a space at work. I was an event planner and a bartender at the
Mm.
time. And I didn't have a space at work where I could pump and store
Right.
my milk. And once she got a bottle of formula, it was like, she's like, "What is this?" Like, "Oh, it's on and cracking now. Like, I can just get a bottle of this and feel full." And I went home and she refused my breast and I didn't know how to
Mm.
get her back on. And I just
Mm.
felt this, it was like an impending doom, to be
Mm.
honest. I mean, I just felt like such a failure. And that's when my postpartum depression really kicked in. I felt like I couldn't feed my child. I wasn't ready to stop. I didn't know how to wean. I didn't know how to get rid of all this breast milk that was flowing through my body. And it was just a really hard road.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, you pick yourself up from all of that because you have this baby that you love and adore more than anything in the world. And you'll do anything to make her happy. And if formula is the way that she's going to be happy, we'll just do formula.
Right.
But that wasn't my goal. And
Mm.
I never got over that. to be
Yeah.
honest. I mean, I'm still kind of like choked up talking about it.
Oh.
She's almost 13. Like you don't
Yeah.
forget that stuff, it
Yeah.
lives in your body. So going into it with my son, I just knew that I wanted to do better. I had different goals and I was just set out on doing the research myself, and that's when the certification came into place. I was like, if I need this kind of help, then I know other people do.
Right.
Um so
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I feel like so few people talk about the link between mental health and breastfeeding, but
mm,
I've been doing a lot of birth story interviews and things like that recently. And most people, when they talk about postpartum depression, talk about it linking to their breastfeeding journey, whether
mhm,
it be like the hormones due to that, or just like, yeah, feeling failure around it, or like inability to do what they thought they were going to.
definitely.
So yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like people like I never see media talk about it really.
No, no, and it's it's like a silent diagnosis.
Yeah.
We don't have enough checkpoints
Mhm.
to really help people feel comfortable talking about it. I think we go back for our postpartum checkups and it's like we answer a questionnaire. We don't want to answer it honestly because we're afraid, someone's going to think we're crazy and take our babies away from us or something.
Right.
It's this big um there's such a dichotomy between feeling in control as a mother
Mhm.
and feeling so completely emotionally and mentally out of control that you can't even articulate what that
Right.
looks like. So a lot of moms just suffer silently with it, and that's one of the things that I go over with my clients a lot. And I tell them, I'm not here just for you to talk to me about breastfeeding.
Mhm.
If you're having a really bad day, text me and we'll
Yeah.
talk it through. So many of my consultations turn into like therapy sessions without
Yeah.
me even knowing it sometimes. I didn't even know that I was there for that, but that's what I
Mhm.
end up being there for. Breastfeeding could be going perfectly, but
Yeah.
they just feel so mentally and emotionally out of control and incapable of caring for their child that we shift really quickly over to that. And it's my job as a lactation consultant, I feel, to provide you with a safe space to talk about what's really going on.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I feel like super, super important.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, before we delve too deep into breastfeeding and
Mhm.
lactation, I want to chat a little bit about cord blood banking and just your general exposure to it. So yeah, I am the founder of Anja Health. We do cord blood banking and also placenta and cord tissue banking for
Yes.
stem cells. So that's why I brought our kit and our placenta plushie
Yes,
today.
I love the placenta plushie. I'm
Thank you.
totally getting one for myself.
Yeah, I'll send you that Z-Link. Cool. So yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts on just what you've heard about cord blood banking. I know you typically cater to parents postpartum, but
Mhm.
just interested to know your thoughts as a birth worker in general.
I think it's super freaking cool. I mean, I'm all for it. I think choices like these are so individual and
Yeah.
it's all dependent upon a parent's own research and knowledge. If they're armed with the information and this is something that they decide to do, I think that anything we can do to protect our babies is so important. I love what you guys do. And anyone
Thanks.
that I know who has encapsulated their placenta or decided to ingest it in some type of way after giving birth,
Hmm.
they all have a very positive experience with it.
Mm,
I just think it's a really individual choice.
yeah.
So, there's certain things that I do talk about and certain things that I won't even touch,
Hmm.
like circumcision or
Yeah.
vaccines or placenta encapsulation or cord blood banking,
Yeah.
because those things are such an individual choice. But I love the fact that parents have all of these options. And I think it's so important for them to do whatever they feel is necessary. And it's also genetics, right? If you know
Yeah.
enough about your history and you feel like something may come down the line,
Hmm.
why not put that protection in place for your infant? I think it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, did you when you were looking at cord blood banking or just your birth plan in general when you were having your kids, what was your general exposure to cord blood
None.
banking? Oh, really?
None. I had
Um,
no knowledge of it at all. This is
mm,
something that I've only learned about recently in my last few
yeah,
years of practice.
cool.
That option wasn't even proposed for
Yeah.
me. So I think that is super cool too. It's like my son is going to be 7.
Mm.
So I just had a baby 7 years ago
Yeah.
and look at at all of these new options that there are for parents now. I mean,
Yeah.
even the products that are flying at me from left and right. I'm like, "Oh my god, that would have been so cool." But I didn't have the chance to use that, or I didn't have the chance to do that. I think that
Yeah.
this is something that I probably would have done,
Okay.
honestly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do clients ever ask your perspective on cord blood banking? I know it's not necessarily your forte.
They do talk to me a little bit about it, but like I said, I always say whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Because lactation is my lane. So I
Yeah.
really try to stay there. Unless we go off on other postpartum issues. But,
Mhm.
there's certain things that I just don't like to sway parents to do.
For
So
sure.
I never want my opinion to be something that they use as their own judgment.
Yeah. That
That's
makes
really
sense.
important to me.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, now I'd love to pivot into lactation, which is, as you said, your lane.
Yes.
So first, I wanted to get your take on some highly liked comments that we've seen on our social media that were just general breastfeeding questions that I feel like are really popular amongst pregnant parents.
Okay.
So yeah, the first one is we got a comment that said, I know not everyone has the ability to, but I only breastfeed. Pumping moms, I don't know how you do it. I'm lazy. So what would you say to
Mm.
parents that feel like pumping is too much work? And especially if they have like mental health issues or anything that come up with breastfeeding, I feel like sometimes pumping can help relieve that, but they just think it's a lot of work.
Um, well, pumping is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat that, you
Yeah.
know? Pumping too early on in the breastfeeding game can really create issues
What do
for
you
you.
define as too early?
Too early is like in the hospital.
Okay.
Before we even have examined your milk supply and really
Hmm.
see what's going on. I offer a package where I can be there with you for the golden hour. I can
Mm,
be there with you for the first couple latches, and we can really see what your baby is capable of doing. And I think a lot of times in the hospital, people get pushed to pump because baby either isn't gaining weight fast enough or we don't have enough cholesterol, quote unquote,
mhm.
right? So pumping gets brought into the breastfeeding regimen, as you might call it, too early. And then people are strapped to this pump, feeling separated from their baby. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, pumping becomes too much work.
Mhm.
If you ask me my opinion, the people who exclusively pump are like the VIPs of breastfeeding. Like they
Yeah.
are. Or no, the MVPs
Yeah.
of breastfeeding, like they are doing the most work. So if you feel lazy, I mean, I hate that word because I
Mhm.
don't think anybody who's breastfeeding in any capacity is lazy.
Right.
Um, but if you feel like pumping is too much work, I would just tell you to ask yourself why you're doing it. What
Mhm.
are you doing it for? Are you doing it to increase your milk supply? Are you doing it to provide yourself with a break from having baby latch to you all the time? Are you doing
Mhm.
it to, build a supply for when you go back to work? Are you doing There's so many different reasons why you may or may not need to pump. So, if you're exclusively breastfeeding and you're at home with your baby and everything's working fine, there's really no need to pump at all.
Yeah.
So it's so individual, but I would never want someone who is breastfeeding their baby who isn't pumping when they don't have to
Mhm.
think that they're lazy.
Yeah.
And I also want to give a shout out to those moms who have discovered that latching isn't their jam for whatever
Yeah.
reason, right? And who do end up exclusively pumping. I have clients who exclusively pumped for like 2 years.
Mm.
And I personally am like, "How did you do that?"
Yeah.
I don't know if I could have done it. I was blessed to have not had to pump very much for my son, my second born. So I just, it's my job to like liberate you from whatever you feel is difficult and provide
Yeah.
you with another option. So don't ever think that you're lazy.
Yeah.
Ever, ever, ever.
I love that reframing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've read articles about people pumping, like you talked about pumping early.
Mhm.
I've read articles about people pumping when they're still pregnant for colostrum.
Yeah,
Do you
antenatal colostrum harvesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
do
a
you
thing.
what do you, like, think about that?
Um, I mean, I think it's kind of like cord blood banking.
Yeah.
Honestly, like you're still pregnant,
Mhm.
you're producing colostrum around week 16 to 20 of your pregnancy. That's when everything kind of starts happening and you've really arrived, right?
Right.
your breasts are showing up for you, maybe you can hand express a little colostrum, take it with you to the hospital. If you're ever in a situation where your baby has jaundice or your baby has another medical reason why they need to be whisked away from you, taken to the NICU, or your baby's premature and can't latch or
Yeah.
whatever, colostrum is the most important thing to get into your baby after
Mhm.
birth. So if you're able to collect some colostrum and take it with you, I'm all for it. Just make
Yeah.
sure that you don't have any pregnancy complications. There's
Mm.
no reason for you to not do it. And that's a question for your doctor.
Right.
So, people ask me about this a lot, and I say, hey, if you're doing it and your pregnancy is going well and you want to take some with you to the hospital, by all means, do it.
Yeah.
Colostrum is gold.
Yeah. I've read some comments around pumping too early, basically while you're pregnant, causing
Hmm.
contractions.
Yes.
So, yeah, does it? And to what extent is that to be prevented?
I mean, it can. This kind of goes in alignment with if you have a baby who's already nursing and then you get pregnant, can you still breastfeed?
Right.
You're providing stimulation to your breasts during pregnancy. So,
Right.
yes, this can cause uterine contractions.
Mhm.
Is it dangerous? It kind of depends on where you are in your pregnancy.
Yeah.
If your doctor advises against it because you have, high blood pressure or gestational diabetes or preeclampsia or placenta previa, anything that's causing another issue for you, I wouldn't recommend it.
Right.
Just because we don't need to supercharge your body for any reason. Your breasts are going to show up for you after you have this baby, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So there's really no prep, quote unquote, that needs to be done for breastfeeding.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of a myth. People go into it like, do I need to prep my nipples? Do I need to collect colostrum? Do I need to be
Mm.
pumping? Do I need to stop breastfeeding my baby that I already have because I'm pregnant? It's like, no, you just need to chill, really. That's kind of my
Yeah.
answer. You just need to chill. Like your body's doing this by default. You're
Yeah.
pregnant. So you're going to produce colostrum, you're going to be able to breastfeed. It's really just a matter of navigating what that looks like for you after you have the baby. So
Yeah.
just kind of wait, see what your body does. There's
Yeah.
no need to freak out too early and be pumping while you're pregnant. No. I've
Yeah.
never recommended that.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, another popular comment that we got on our social media was, so my partner wants to be able to feed our son. Would supplementing with formula until the 6 week mark be okay?
Until the 6-week mark,
Yeah.
um I mean, yeah. Like, I'm down for whatever you wanna do. Like, I always
Yeah.
start a consultation, especially if a partner's present and wanting to be involved. Yes. Like, let's get you involved
Yeah.
somehow. And if that means formula for you guys and that's your choice, 100%, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Um, the thing about introducing bottles early
Mhm.
is that there could be some. I don't like to use the word nipple confusion, honestly, because I really don't feel like that's a thing. I
Mhm.
mean, other lactation consultants may disagree with me, but I'm kind of a rule breaker anyway, so I don't really care if they
Yeah.
disagree. Um,
How do you define nipple confusion?
that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
like, is there confusion or is my baby just eating from whatever nipple I put in their mouth? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? A baby who's hungry is going to latch onto whatever you put in its mouth.
Yeah.
Babies suck and cry for survival.
Mhm.
So, if we introduce bottles too early, really what the issue is and where the quote unquote confusion comes in is when a baby starts to refuse the breast because he's getting too many bottles.
Right.
A bottle has one hole, it has one speed. You tilt it, milk or formula comes out of it,
Mhm.
period. With a breast, it takes so much more work. It's an entirely different set of mechanics that this baby's using to extract breast milk from the breast.
Yeah.
And it's a lot harder. There's a lot more that goes into it. So, when we're giving baby bottles, it's just important to protect mom's milk supply. So, she would need to pump while a bottle is given.
Mhm.
And then we need to constantly reinforce the breastfeeding relationship by bringing the baby back to the breast.
Mm.
So, what I typically recommend is if it's like this kind of a situation where I just want a break, I just want dad to feed the baby, like it's no big deal type of thing. We don't have to give the baby formula for any other reason. We're not like in a race to gain weight. We don't have to structure a pumping plan, anything like that. If it's just a casual, like dad wants to be involved, Heck yes. Let's make dad do a couple bottles during the day, but make sure you're
Yeah.
pumping. Make
Mhm.
sure you guys are communicating and choosing what times to do those bottles
Mhm.
and throw in some self care for mom,
Right.
right? So, like, typically what I would recommend is wake up and feed the baby. The next feeding can be a bottle. You can take a shower. You can eat your breakfast while that
Mhm.
bottle's being given. You can pump. You can watch something on Netflix. Like, you can hang out, right? And then do the same thing for one feeding in the evening.
Okay.
So it's dad's bonding time.
Yeah.
I am all for that. I love that plan, and I recommend it a lot, actually.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I recently interviewed a parent who basically her husband would go to sleep at like 6 p.m. and get up at 2 a.m. and then stay up through the night, and she would stay up until 2 a.m. And wait. Yeah, she would stay up until 2 a.m., go to sleep then, and then sleep like later. So he would take like a super early shift and she would take a much later shift.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. I love, you know, having a baby literally brings out the very best and the
Mhm.
absolute worst in people. It really does,
Yeah.
and if your communication is on point
Mhm.
and you guys are looking at each other like, "Hey, what works for us?"
Right.
Breastfeeding is it's holistic. And I want to look at your entire environment. How are we creating the best environment, not just for this baby, but for the two of you?
Mhm.
Sleep can really like fortify a relationship. If
Yeah.
both of you are sleep deprived, you're not communicating. You don't even know
Yeah.
what your name is half the time.
Yeah.
You're so exhausted. So I love that plan. I love anything that makes you feel empowered, that makes you feel unified in your relationship as new parents,
Right.
and that works for this baby and this baby's getting fed.
Yeah.
That's what I care about. So
Okay.
whatever that looks like for you, I'm all for it.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Cool. Another comment that we had was very new to this, but can you go straight to pump to bottle, no latching?
Yeah. If that's what you
Mm.
wanna do. You wanna be an MVP exclusive pumper, yeah, I mean, that's what you gotta do, right? So,
Yeah.
if you've decided for whatever reason that latching is not something you wanna do, and I have had clients who have felt that way due to maybe past trauma,
Mm.
due to, maybe a negative association with their breasts, maybe something else has happened.
Mm.
I've had clients who have had breast surgeries that have
Right.
gone awry, right? So, they don't even wanna take the chance
Yeah.
of latching their baby. There's many, many reasons why you may not feel like latching is something that's for you. Um, Go straight to pumping. Yes, make sure you're asking the hospital for a hospital grade pump.
Mhm.
Make sure you're collecting some colostrum before so you can get really, really comfortable with hand expressing.
Yeah.
Hand expressing can sometimes yield like 30% more milk than
Mm.
a pump does.
Wow.
So get really comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with hand expressing, get a manual hand pump.
Right.
A manual hand pump sometimes gets you so much more than hooking yourself up to an electric. So
Yeah.
it's all about what you respond to, right?
Yeah.
But yes, you can definitely do that.
Okay, cool. With
Hmm.
your boobs that you brought, do you want to demonstrate hand expressing?
Sure. Why not? Basically, hand expressing is like these are so little, but they're like the same size as my boobs, guys. So, this is pretty accurate for what I
Yeah.
would do.
Okay.
So basically, you want to take your hand, think of like a kitten when
Mhm.
they're kneading their mom's
Mm.
belly, right?
Yes.
So when you have a kitten who's like trying to get that milk
Yeah.
out of their mom's belly, you want to take your fingers and really, really massage in circular motions all of this glandular tissue that you have. And you can have like a little bit. Breast size does not matter when it comes to milk production.
Yeah.
So you just want to be massaging any tissue that you have. Once you've massaged, I like to think of the breasts in like four quadrants. So
Mhm.
you have a line going down the middle all the way underneath your breast. And
Mhm.
then you have one going from the middle of your chest all the way across to this tissue that leads all the way up into your armpit,
Okay.
actually. So
Yeah.
people can get engorged all the way up into their armpit.
Mm.
So you want to massage all four quadrants of your breast. And once you feel like everything's kind of soft and malleable and ready to go, put your thumb on top of your areola, your fingers down below. push against your chest wall first,
Mm.
and then come down and out towards the nipple. But notice I'm not pinching the nipple and trying to get
Yeah.
milk out. You really just want to press this glandular tissue that's surrounding your areola, and then you'll see like drops of milk come out. And
Okay.
you can use a cup down here to collect. You can use a spoon and feed it directly to baby.
Yeah.
You can collect it in a syringe. One of the companies that I work with, Haka, hey
Mhm.
guys, Haka New Zealand, they have these amazing silicone colostrum collectors
Cool.
that are squeezable. So you can literally just squeeze it, place it at your nipple, and just suck that colostrum right in there. Freeze the collectors, use them at the hospital, do whatever you want to do. But hand expression is so, so valuable, whether you're breastfeeding at the breast, when you're pumping, you can be massaging those four quadrants with the pump strapped onto you.
Mhm.
It's very, very useful. So
Okay,
just,
awesome.
I always tell my clients, get used to touching yourself in ways that you never have before. Like, I want you walking around your house just touching your boobs all the time. I find
Yeah.
myself when I'm just talking to people, I'll be like, because it's just so natural to me now. I don't even think
Yeah.
about it, but I'm just demonstrating, all of these different areas that are involved with hand expression. So it's really important to just remember thumb on top of the areola, fingers underneath the bottom, push against your chest wall first, and come down and out towards the nipple, but not pinching the actual nipple.
Okay, awesome. I love that. That was such
Yeah.
a good demonstration.
You're welcome.
Cool. Okay. Another top comment was my baby latched immediately, and it was such a perfect moment. And this was on a pretty viral video we had, just talking about what to do during the golden hour. So,
Okay.
yeah, immediately after birth, how do you get that perfect latch, and how should the baby sort of approach its first time breastfeeding?
Oh my God. This is such an amazing question. There's something called the breast crawl.
Okay.
Okay. The breast crawl is something that a baby innately does once they're placed on a mother's chest.
Hmm.
So there are so many videos out there of people in different cultures because
Yeah.
unfortunately we don't practice this in the
Hmm.
US. But if you watch a baby, they will innately crawl up the mom's body if they're skin to skin. They will
Hmm.
find the areola, which tends to get darker and much larger during pregnancy, and we call it a
Hmm.
bullseye.
Yeah.
That's the baby's bullseye. They don't have any clear vision yet, but they can see that areola and they
Yeah.
smell that breast milk. Colostrum smells just like amniotic fluid, which is
Hmm.
what the baby has lived in for the past almost 10 months in your body, right?
Yeah.
So they will crawl up to your breast. In the US, typically in hospitals, our C section rate is really high.
Right.
So you need to be with a doctor who knows that you want to do skin to skin with your baby following a C-section.
Hmm.
That is possible. Okay. We call it a gentle C-section
Yeah.
where the doctor allows baby to kind of work its way out of the mom's belly and they'll gently pull the baby out and place them skin to skin and you can have your golden hour. Um, if you're having a vaginal birth, whether it's with medication or without, you want to make sure that the baby's placed directly on your chest right after birth.
Right.
I also recommend leaving the vernix, that nice coated skin coating that the baby's born with, that yummy, thick, like frosting is what it
Mhm.
looks like. Leave that alone. Just let the baby soak in that. They will find your areola and you can get that perfect latch, but it's
Mm.
all about the skin to skin. And then what's a perfect latch the first time? Like, especially if you've never done this before, right?
Yeah.
So I always say, however that baby latches the first time is absolutely perfect. I tend to not make any comments about it. I just kind of let the mom and the baby figure it out. And then once we've kind of moved out of that golden hour, the postpartum fog and all that adrenaline has calmed down
Mhm.
a little bit, then I can get in there and kind of instruct you on how to make things more comfortable. But
Yeah.
that first latch, if you can get your baby on and you feel that suction happening, that is such a beautiful moment that should never be criticized. And whatever it looks like is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. I love that you're so positive because I feel like that's so important. So many people feel such shame around breastfeeding sometimes. So I
Yeah.
love
Well,
that
I
you're
did.
yeah.
I felt such shame the first time and I never want to feel I never want to make a mom feel that way,
Yeah.
I want her to feel like whatever you do is absolutely perfect and I'm on board with whatever you want.
Mhm.
So that golden hour is so important. It's the first way for you to establish your breastfeeding environment and really
Right.
create that bond with your baby. So
Mhm.
the more you can talk about it with your doctor, the more you can express to hospital staff while you're in labor, like, this is what I want. This is
Yeah.
what I envision. I want that golden hour. I want that peace and quiet. I want that skin to skin connection. That latch is going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. So it's such an exciting thing. And I'm always so honored to be there to witness
Yeah.
it.
That's
It's really,
awesome.
really amazing.
Also using your boobs, do you wanna show sort of what a good latch looks like? I don't know if you can, like, mimic it with your hands or anything like that.
Really, what a good latch looks like is I should have brought my baby doll. I was thinking about it and I left him at home. Little
Aw.
Dwayne. I named him Dwayne. I don't know why, but he's Dwayne.
I
My
love
kids are
that.
afraid of him because he's kind of scary looking. But what you really want is your baby's bottom lip to be fully flanged underneath the
Mhm.
nipple. And you want his top lip to chin touching the breast first, okay?
Yeah.
Because you want baby kind of looking up at the nipple. You want his mouth to come up and over the nipple with his top lip also flanged, like a fish, like,
Yeah.
you know? And then if you need, see, you're doing it
Yeah.
with your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, exactly. Duck
It was a
lips. When you take a
reflex.
selfie, like, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just like that. So you want to be able to see the pink underneath the baby's lips.
Mhm.
That's how you know you got a good deep latch. And you'll have a lot of nurses in the hospital tell you, like, you need to get your whole areola in the baby's mouth. And I
Yeah.
say that so sarcastically because sometimes it's freaking impossible. Okay.
Yeah.
Your baby's mouth is tiny. Your areola is probably huge. Like,
Right.
how you're sitting there thinking, like, how do I get my entire areola in this tiny baby's mouth?
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't work. All you really need is the bottom lip to be flanged, chin touching the bottom of the breast, coming up and over that nipple. And we
Mhm.
can help you do that with different positioning.
Okay.
So you want baby's belly on your belly. You want to support the back of the head, and you want to be able to bring the breast tissue to the baby rather than shoving the baby's head on the breast.
Right.
So it's really a matter of like finding that right compression for your breast and your nipple, supporting the baby's body, belly to belly, chin touching the breast, and then coming up and over that nipple. You see the bottom lip flange, top lip flange. You see the pink underneath. Maybe you need to
Yeah.
reach in there and kind of manually manipulate the lip so he can pull more breast tissue into his mouth, but we can get there. If there's
Okay.
no oral obstructions inside the baby's mouth, which is also a thing,
Mhm.
then that kind of a latch can be achieved pretty immediately.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Another good demonstration.
Thank you.
Cool. So yeah, it's interesting that you touched on C-sections because another one of our top comments was if you have a C-section, how can you get that latch immediately? So
Mm.
I'm curious what happens. Yeah, in the case that you have a C-section and you don't advocate for skin to skin, what do physicians do? And like, what do you recommend people should do if they're receiving a C-section?
Well, a C-section is a major surgery. Okay.
Yeah.
It's also a very beautiful way to bring a baby into the world. So, whether
Hmm.
you've chosen that or whether your birth plan has taken a different direction and you end up there, sometimes it's not what you really want to happen. Sometimes it's scheduled and you're just ready to go. But it's
Right.
a major surgery, regardless of how you look at it. So, you're going to have an IV full of fluids. You're going to be open on an operating table. And
Hmm.
obviously, their goal is to take care of you and make sure that you are okay, that there's no excessive blood loss, that there was no complication trying to remove the baby from your body, right?
Yeah.
So typically, what they do is once they know the baby is out and safe, they'll take the baby away, wrap them in a blanket, do all their tests, things like that. So the staff typically is trying to make sure that you are good medication wise, anesthesia wise,
Hmm.
comfort wise, right? So there's kind of a loss of that innate connection, like I described.
Right.
So if you haven't advocated for it, then they're not going to do skin to skin immediately. They will bring your baby to you. They'll be able
Hmm.
to smell you. You'll be face to face with your baby, but it's not very typical that they'll put them skin to skin right away.
Okay.
So, usually with a C section, there's a delay in that relationship. They want to make sure that all your anesthesia has worn off.
Hmm.
Sometimes, with that delay, and especially if there's additional blood loss, your progesterone levels and your oxytocin levels are affected.
Hmm.
So, typically, once the placenta is delivered, your progesterone levels drop drastically and your prolactin and oxytocin shoot up
Yeah.
like rapid fire, right? Because you're ready to feed your child now.
Mhm.
They're no longer inside of you, and your body knows, your brain knows it's time to feed this kid and keep them alive, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a delay in that establishment, that can kind of create some, anxiety for mom. Stress levels can be high depending on what happens in the operating room.
Mhm.
Sometimes there's more of a delay, and baby's been offered formula already in order to be fed. So that can kind of delay the process. Maybe baby's tired from the entire operation, right? So there's
Mhm.
even more of a delay in getting that perfect latch. So there are some things to look out for when you're having a C section, but that's why it's really important to hire me. It's really important to have a trusted lactation
Yeah.
professional there who can kind of walk you through it,
Right.
not only to support and protect your milk supply, but also just to make you feel like you're not alone,
Yeah.
right? And that there's somebody there step by step who's checking on baby,
Mhm.
advocating for you. Maybe we've harvested some colostrum already. Maybe I'm in there hand expressing it.
Hmm.
Okay. Maybe I'm in there working on you,
Yeah.
making sure that in the postpartum area, while you're still kind of like out of it from the anesthesia, I can be helping you hand express and collecting that colostrum and getting it into baby. That's the most important thing,
Right.
is just protecting your milk supply. So, getting that knowledge, having a breastfeeding prep session with me or someone else that you've hired so that you know what your plan is, you know what to expect going into it, and you have us there on call.
Yeah.
That is so, so important, especially if you know already that you're having a C-section.
Right.
So, those are kind of the typical warning signs,
Okay.
'cause
Awesome.
we really don't know what's gonna happen in the OR either,
Yeah.
and we don't know what's gonna happen with the baby.
Right.
So, there's a lot that we can kind of prep you for, but we won't really know what's happening until you give birth, and that's why it's really important to have one of us there with you.
Right. Yeah. Chatting about sort of unexpected outcomes. Another top comment was, what about preterm moms? How can they get a latch immediately if the baby goes straight to the NICU? So, in those cases, what would you recommend?
That's such an individual, you know, situation. It
Yeah.
depends on what is medically going on. Was this just a preterm baby and we weren't expecting that?
Hmm.
What kind of treatment is the baby receiving? Are they even big enough or capable? Do they have enough muscle tone to latch yet? A lot of times I'll recommend an SNS, a supplemental nutrition system,
Mm.
where mom can kind of pump her milk, put it in, have a tube placed at the breast so that the baby can practice latching onto the breast. But if there isn't enough muscle tone for baby to latch on their own, that SNS is kind of feeding the breast milk to
Mm.
them, but that skin to skin bonding is happening.
Yeah.
When babies are in the NICU, it's so difficult.
Right.
It's really, really hard on parents. Parents have to visit at specific times. There's so many different factors that go into that, but
Yeah.
skin to skin really is more important to me at that point than having baby latch.
Yeah.
Once you practice that kangaroo care and you have that baby on you, you guys are bonding and we can work on breastfeeding later.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. We want to reduce your anxiety by helping you have your baby close to you,
Hmm.
if that's possible, right? Because we don't know what's going on medically with you or with baby yet.
Hmm.
And then once baby is at gestational age, which means where they would be had you had them in your body for 39 to
Yeah.
40 weeks, right? Or maybe 41 for some of us, then we can really get into the mechanics and the functionality of breastfeeding. So, my stress at that point, really, when your baby is in the NICU, is protect your milk supply by pumping,
Hmm.
offer milk to baby in however appropriate a method, maybe spoon, maybe cup, maybe SNS, right? Maybe dropper. Dropper is also very effective, like a medicine dropper.
Yeah.
Um, that's where those silicone colostrum collectors really come in because you can feed those straight to baby when they're in the NICU. And then skin to skin for
Okay.
bonding is so, so important.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know if you watch Grey's Anatomy, but I remember there's an episode
Where
where
the guy nurse
yeah.
does the kangaroo care with the baby and
Yeah,
totally saves
yeah.
them. Yes,
Yes,
that was one of my favorite
exactly.
episodes. And honestly, like I gave up on that show because I was like, you
Yeah,
guys,
it's
like,
so
where
long.
else are you gonna go with this?
Yeah.
Like, I can't do it anymore. But that was my favorite episode.
Yeah.
It was my favorite. Like that. When
Yeah.
you talk to me about Grey's Anatomy, that's the episode that comes to my mind because that's how amazing skin to skin is. It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
temperature regulator. It regulates baby's heartbeat. It allows them to feel the vibrations and the frequencies of your voice and smell you and
Right.
just that human connection.
Mhm.
We've lost that. In our US hospitals, we have lost the value of human connection.
Yeah.
So it's so, so important to me that we
Right.
initiate that for parents. That's really where you get all the good stuff is skin
Yeah.
to skin.
Yeah, that was my first exposure to the idea of skin to skin. I was in high school, but, yeah, it was just, like, kinda crazy that that's true, like, a true
Yeah.
phenomena.
That's so cool that you were in high school and you like were affected by that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's really deep.
No, for sure. Cool. Well, I have some FAQs after this, but our last comment that I
Mhm.
want to get your take on was, what should parents do if breastfeeding is impacting their mental health? I know we kind of touched
That
on this already.
another I mean, it's so important first of all to understand that breastfeeding positively impacts mental health.
Yeah.
We have so many parents out there, the Fed is best movement is happening. We have formula moms who shame breastfeeding moms for making them
Mm,
feel like failures, and
right.
all of that stuff is going on. And I like to kind of reframe the conversation to understanding breastfeeding contributes to high levels of oxytocin.
Mhm.
Oxytocin in your brain positively affects mental health.
Yeah.
So, if we can get these moms to understand that before going into breastfeeding, they might stand a chance of saying, "This is really freaking hard. This
Yeah.
is really hard. I'm exhausted. I don't want to do this anymore." But what I say is never quit on a hard day because
Mhm.
it's not going to feel this way forever. And breastfeeding positively impacts mental health. Moms who breastfeed have a very, very lower rate of postpartum depression if they
Mm.
can breastfeed comfortably and
Yeah.
successfully and effectively. It keeps you close to your baby, it minimizes separation, it reminds you of what the hell you're doing all this for, right? It keeps you close to your child, and that's where your child wants to be anyway.
Yeah.
Your boobs are like home base. Like they feel
Yeah.
like that's the closest they can be to being back in the womb. So we need to first dissect what is happening and why you feel like breastfeeding is so difficult.
Mhm.
It's my job to, again, liberate you from stress,
Yeah.
reduce stress levels. If you're going through a lot while you're pregnant, if you're experiencing stressful events while you're having a baby, just like we experience with people having babies during COVID, I
Mhm.
mean, the levels of stress were really, really high.
Right.
And stressing breastfeeding relationships in order to help your mental health is part of my job as a lactation consultant. I'm supposed to promote breastfeeding, right?
Yeah.
So if you come to me and you need permission to stop breastfeeding, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you if it's really what you want. But I
Mhm.
also have many clients who have weaned too early. And all of
Mm.
a sudden, they're missing that breastfeeding relationship, right? They think that breastfeeding is what's affecting their mental health, but that's not what it is.
Yeah.
So we have to really dig deep. We have to go into the confines of a mom's mind and really find out what's happening. Like, let's look at the biopsychosocial environment here and see what's happening. What's going on in here? What's going on in your heart? What's going on? What are you feeling in your body? And let's figure out if breastfeeding really is the issue. And I don't think for many, many people that breastfeeding really is the issue.
Mhm.
There might be something connected to breastfeeding that's happening, maybe partner support, maybe family pushing you to do formula, maybe your baby's not gaining weight fast enough, maybe you're
Mm.
getting advice from your pediatrician, maybe
Yeah.
you're just stressed the out, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes I cuss. I'm a
It's
little
okay.
rough around the edges, so if that slips out, sorry. But,
No.
like, let's find out what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough people have a deep enough conversation about their mental health. Like
Right.
I touched on in the beginning, what is really happening and is breastfeeding really the issue?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times if we dig deep enough, we'll find out that it's not.
Yeah.
And breastfeeding really can actually assist you with regulating your mental health.
Mhm.
So if I can help you achieve that, That's a victory, but I'm also here to support you. You are my client. I love your baby. I love them to death, but you are my client. So it's my job to make sure that your mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health is all in alignment in order to either make breastfeeding successful and comfortable for you, or for us to find a way for you to wean so that you can liberate yourself from whatever you feel breastfeeding is harmful to you.
Right. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting you talk about the positive aspects of it, because one of our investors, Nick Shelley, he's a healthcare founder, but his mom is actually a lactation consultant in the Bay Area, and she was one of the
Mm.
main lactation consultants featured in. Do you remember that Time magazine cover? I think it was a 6-year-old who was still breastfeeding. That was
Yes,
the
on the model,
image.
and she was, like, standing
Yeah.
up. Yes, I
Yeah,
remember
and so
that.
yeah, his mom was like one of the main lactation consultants featured in that article.
Oh my god,
Yeah,
amazing.
so it made me think about, like, she's a huge proponent of, like, long-term breastfeeding and
Yeah,
just, like, the positive impact that it can have there.
yes.
So yeah, that's super interesting. Have you had anyone that breastfeeds, like, a crazy amount of time?
I breastfed my son until he was almost 4.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so, I mean, me. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I went from, breastfeeding my daughter until she was only 4 months
Mhm.
to, like, breastfeeding a grown man. Like, we were literally having conversations about it,
Yeah.
and then, I look at my 2 kids, and I mean, both of them are amazing and they're geniuses and they're like the perfect kids in my eyes, right? I'm
Yeah.
I'm a little biased, but I look at the two different relationships and I see how formula impacted my daughter
Right.
negatively. I see the health of my son and how
Mhm.
different that was
What are those
for him.
differences?
Um I think my daughter had a ton of skin allergies
Hmm.
and we were in the ER. I mean, I'm not even joking, like probably 30 times. My
Mm.
daughter had everything under the sun
Wow.
before she was the age of 1. Both of my kids' oral anatomy was obstructed, so they've
Mm.
both undergone surgeries. My daughter had hers when she was 4, and my son had his when he was 2.5. Um, and I think that feeding my daughter bottles of formula really contributed to those issues.
Hmm.
She's grown out of them now,
Yeah.
but that struggle was really, really difficult. She had something called erythema multiforme when she
Mm.
was 8 months old and she almost died.
Oh, wow.
Her entire body swelled up and she had lesions all over and she couldn't sit
Mm.
up and she had a fever of 104. And it was just, like terrifying things.
Yeah.
And then I look at my son and it's like, yeah, he had some issues due to his oral anatomy, but we breastfed right through his surgery, and
Yeah.
breastfeeding saved me through that
Mhm.
time, being able to connect with him and just being able to have that bond and that relationship. And I got divorced when my son was almost 3
Mm.
and entering a co-parenting relationship where I was separated from him for days, being
Yeah.
able to go right back to breastfeeding and have that relationship, it was so, so helpful for
Yeah.
us.
So it was mixed breastfeeding with, like, other foods?
Yeah, I mean, he once a kid turns 1, they're really
Yeah.
interested in solid foods.
Yeah.
Their diet should be made up mostly of solid foods by that
Right,
point.
right.
But breastfeeding is such a good foundation. It's beneficial to everybody. Like if we had a
Yeah.
cup of breast milk right here and we were drinking it, like it would be good for us.
Yeah.
Okay, there's so many amazing properties to breast milk
Mhm.
that can really help protect an immune system as long as you're giving it to someone. So breastfeeding in other cultures is really common up to like 6 or 7 years old.
Right.
And psychologically what we've found is that we are carrier mammals. We are meant to have our kids close to us and
Yeah.
a kid really isn't ready psychologically to be separated from its parents and really be on their own until they're about 7.
Mm.
So if you think about it in terms of that, why not hold on to that breastfeeding relationship as long as you can, as long as you are comfortable with your
Yeah.
kid? And the beauty of breastfeeding a kid that is old enough to reason with and have a conversation with is
Yeah.
like, I was looking at my son like, okay, Nico, we're going to go to the playground for a couple hours. He would ask for it and I'd be like, nah. Let's just wait until we go home and, it's
Yeah.
nap time or whatever. And that's the beauty of it. That's when it
Mhm.
gets really fun because now you have this human being who's like fully functioning and out in the world and experiencing life with you, but you can always go back to that. You can
Yeah.
always ground that relationship by having that connection in private or however you're comfortable with it. And
Right.
it's so, so beneficial. If we can instill love and security and a tight bond with our kids when they're young,
Mhm.
then they're going to grow up to feel secure enough to be independent in the world.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of parents don't get. They think, oh, I need to have my baby sleeping in their own crib, in their own room, separated, comfortable, quiet, whatever, away from me. That's the wrong thing to do, in my opinion. You want your baby as close as possible
Yeah.
so that they can grow up feeling like anytime I have a need, my mom is there.
Yeah.
Anytime I have anything that I'm struggling with as I grow up, I know my needs are going to be met because I have that solid foundation. So that's what I push. That's my approach. You
Okay,
know,
super interesting. What made you stop when he was 4?
He was just kind of ready,
Yeah.
and I was kind of ready too. He would, like I said, I felt like he was just walking around in the world, like having conversation. And I was just kind of like, I don't think we need to do this all the time anymore. He still sleeps with me in bed.
Yeah.
He's 7 years old. He will still cuddle me and put his hands on my chest. But
Mhm.
when he was about 4, I was like, why don't we just cuddle instead? Why don't I just rub your back or and for the first couple of times, it was pretty hard for him, because he wanted to go right back. But I was like, nah, we don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And now he's just super comfortable cuddling and whatever. But he's the happiest, most independent, most social. Like,
Mhm.
he would come here and do an hour-long podcast with you. Like, this kid is, once he got his surgery, done and his oral anatomy addressed and fixed and revised, this kid will not stop talking. He is just, it's insane the stuff that comes out of his mouth. And he's so awesome. And so is my daughter. And it's
Yeah.
just two totally different journeys. But these kids are like, they're all over me when
Yeah.
they're with me. I have done such an incredible job. I'm going to like plug my own motherhood
Yeah,
right
no,
now,
you
but like,
should.
the way that my kids are just so comfortable, even out in
Yeah.
public, just hugging me, holding my hands, kissing me. My daughter's in 7th grade and she is not ashamed to give me a hug and a kiss. Okay. I don't
Aw.
know how many other moms are out there who could say that, because at this point I was expecting her to be like, okay,
Yeah.
like that's enough. But we're so loving and affectionate towards each
That's
other, and they know
awesome.
that they can come to me with anything. And I honestly feel like it's because of the bond that I was so, so determined to establish with them when they were young.
Right.
So if we can do that, and breastfeeding can be a part of that, and we're supporting them physically and immunologically at the same time, increasing their brain power and just helping them understand, no matter who you are, I am here.
Yeah.
Why stop that before anyone is ready?
Right. Yeah, my parents.
Long-term breastfeeding is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my parents are divorced as well, so I feel like
Okay.
that security, like my mom is the same way, like she's super affectionate and
Mm.
I feel like that kind of security, especially in a separated home, is like so so important.
Oh, I
So,
love that. Thank you
yeah.
for affirming that for me. I love
Yeah.
that.
No,
She's gonna grow up
definitely.
and create her own company and be like a CEO and have investors and like be super successful. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's your connection with your mom really, it's crucial.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that
Mm,
really growing up. So it was a goal of mine, and when breastfeeding didn't work with my daughter, I established it in different ways. There's
right.
very, very happy there's so many happy, healthy, formula fed babies out there. This is not to shame anybody who chooses formula. Formula is an amazing invention. We
Yeah.
use it when we need it. We go to it when it's needed, right? So
Mhm.
I am so happy that it exists, and I'm so happy now that we have so many amazing companies out there that are trying their hardest to replicate breast milk. They'll never get there, in my
Right.
opinion, but we have better ingredients. We have more options. Okay.
Mhm.
I didn't have that many options for my daughter, but what I did have was a degree in psychology that focused on child development. I had education, and I knew what else I could do to establish that bond.
Yeah.
And I did it. Thank God, you know? So
Yeah.
it's there, and you can really, really connect with your formula fed baby too.
Right.
So, any way you want to go, and I help formula feeding parents too.
Mhm.
Lactation consultants who don't address formula, in my opinion, are not practicing in their full scope.
Mhm.
We have to address it all. I'm there for any parent who's making any type of choices.
Yeah, for sure.
Period.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, I'd love to move into our just general breastfeeding FAQs.
Okay.
So my first one is, what are your top 3 tips for pregnant parents who are currently preparing for breastfeeding as lactation consultant?
A good breastfeeding prep course.
Okay.
So, like the one that I offer, it's not a class, it's not a
Hmm.
group class, it's a one on one session. I examine your breasts, I look at what I think may provide obstacles. Um, That's number one.
Hmm.
Okay. So we're having a conversation about breastfeeding. What are your goals? It's kind of like a birth plan. Like
Yeah.
you have your birth plan, let's get your breastfeeding plan together. Let's get you prepped so that you feel empowered with knowledge and information going into your birth.
Hmm.
That's number one for sure.
And how can people find you for that?
Oh, they can they can go to my website. It's
Yeah.
www.ibclclosangeles.com.
Cool.
I have a number that you can text me there. So just you can text me to book right away,
Hmm.
right? I have a form you can fill out online. You can let me know what you're looking for.
And can you do it remotely?
Yes,
Okay. Cool.
100%. I can do everything remote. I have clients all over the world.
Cool.
So we can accomplish a lot during a virtual session.
Awesome.
So your breastfeeding prep can be either virtual or in person, depending on where you're located, right?
Yeah.
The second one would be to get a hand pump.
Hmm.
Not just an electric pump that you're, comfortable with using or whatever. A hand pump is going to be your best friend. Aside from hand expression and learning how to hand express, having a manual hand pump with a handle on it that you can control sometimes yields, like I said, much more milk than an electric pump.
Hmm.
And then also having a lactation consultant on board postpartum.
Hmm.
So you've probably done that if you've done a prenatal session with me.
Yeah.
You know when to call me, you know why to call me. I'm on call during your birth, and you have me as a part of your support team or whoever you hire, not just me. I mean, I'm the best in LA, I must say. But,
Yeah.
just having a trusted lactation professional on deck, ready to go. So
Right.
many parents don't do that. They don't even know that lactation consultants exist until they need one.
Hmm.
So, breastfeeding prep, hand pump, and having the phone number to call after you
Right.
have the baby. Those are probably the 3 things that I would recommend.
Okay. Awesome.
Mhm.
Um, Another common question amongst pregnant parents is, how do new parents need to stimulate their milk following birth?
Latching.
Hmm.
Tons and tons of latching practice. So, right after you get that baby out, you put them skin to skin and you allow them to latch whenever they're ready.
Yeah.
Latching practice is so important because breastfeeding is a learned skill.
Hmm.
So, the more you stimulate the nipples by using the baby as your best tool, because the baby is magic. The baby is what brings the milk supply in.
Yeah.
Okay. So tons of latching practice. It's a learned skill for both of you. You need to stimulate both breasts the same amount of time within a 24-hour period. So you're alternating breasts every time baby pops off and wants to latch again, you're going to the other side.
Hmm.
That's the best way to bring your milk supply in.
Okay. Awesome.
Hmm.
I know you chatted a bit earlier about engorgement. So what are your best tips for dealing with engorgement?
Hand expression. So you want to make sure you're massaging, trying to keep those milk ducts that are full really soft and malleable, getting really comfortable touching your breasts.
Hmm.
Also, latching the baby
Hmm.
around the clock. Sometimes people will give birth and all of a sudden it's like whoosh, like their
Yeah.
body is just ready to go and they're engorged.
Right.
So latching practice, tons of latching practice. Also, ibuprofen can help with swelling and inflammation if you're really
Mm,
engorged. You want to make sure you're talking to your doctor about this, right?
yeah.
Icing the breasts can really help with pain when you're
Mm,
engorged. So sometimes I'll recommend latching the baby and then icing immediately afterwards. Also, if you've had a vaginal birth and you're comfortable getting in this position, you can use gravity to help with engorgement. So you can hang over the baby. You can lay the baby down on the floor, get on
mm.
all fours, drag your nipple down into the baby's mouth, and just kind of let gravity do its thing.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of core work.
Yeah, it's a lot of core work,
Yeah.
yes, but it really helps with clogged ducts.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that there's no milk stasis. Milk stasis
Yeah.
means that no milk is moving through the breast, right?
Right.
So you you want to make sure that you're constantly moving milk through the breast, whether it's through pumping, using your hand pump, or latching the baby. Latching the baby
Mhm.
obviously is my number one choice for engorgement. And usually that engorgement right after birth will disappear once you've transitioned from colostrum into more copious breast milk at about day 5. Sometimes it takes like
Yeah.
7 days for some people to really get through that first initial engorgement part.
Okay. Yeah, what are your tips if you have clogged ducts? And especially I know I've seen a lot of like TikToks of people doing hot takes where their husband like sucks it out and everything like that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
yeah.
hey, whatever works for you, right?
Yeah.
If that floats your boat, like, yeah, pull them in here and have them do that for you.
Mhm.
That's really helpful. Also, avoid a lot of heat and massage. I
Mm.
know that heat and massage is super highly promoted for clogged ducts.
Yeah.
Heat exacerbates swelling. So
Hmm.
if you think about it, you have a clogged milk duct in there because there's been a lot of milk stasis. It's
Right.
gathering in the duct. Now you're swollen, you're tender. Heat exacerbates all that. So use
Yeah.
ice instead and limit the amount of stimulation. When you know you have a clogged duct, you don't want to be in there messing with it a lot.
Yeah.
What you want to do is focus on releasing the milk, right? A little bit of massage is okay, but you don't want to be in there like constantly kneading it. I've gone to clients' homes who are struggling with clogged ducts and they're all bruised because
Mm.
they've been in there like working on it so hard, and it's like,
Yeah.
nah, we got to stop that. So just nurse regularly. Okay, allow the baby to latch. Sometimes the baby will pull the clog right out.
Mhm.
Other times, you got to get in there with your hand pump and really make sure things are moving. A hot shower sometimes really helps because you can get in there and kind of move your breast around and the water
Mhm.
stimulates. Um, and then icing, and making sure that that clogged duct does not turn into mastitis.
Yeah. Okay. Good tips.
Yeah.
Another frequently asked question amongst pregnant parents is how do I end my breastfeeding journey?
Oh, weaning,
Mm.
involution. Yeah, that's a whole session in itself.
Yeah.
I do provide weaning support sessions because that's an
Cool.
entirely different phase. That's considered the last phase of lactation, right? So you're
Yeah.
in involution. What's important to know about weaning is that it really depends on how old your baby is,
Mhm.
what stage of development your baby is at, right? If you have a toddler, let's say, and you want to start weaning them, that's really easy,
Mhm.
or it can be really easy. It's much easier to wean a toddler than it is to wean a younger infant,
Yeah.
just because a younger infant may still be fully dependent on your breast milk. So, in that situation, we have to figure out when and how you can reduce stimulation to the breasts without then creating milk stasis and getting more prone to clogs and mastitis.
Right.
And then we have to figure out how we can transition this newborn or infant to formula,
Mhm.
right? Because they're not yet ready for solid foods or they may not be a year old yet.
Yeah.
When you have a toddler, it's more so about reducing the amount of breastfeedings at the breast and replacing it with something positive. Because a toddler psychologically can understand what you're doing. So, in some senses, it's easier. And then mentally, it may be harder because a
Mhm.
toddler can kind of fight you on it too,
Yeah.
So, you want to make sure that psychologically for this child, if they are a toddler or at toddler age, you're replacing breastfeeding with something positive.
Mm.
You don't want to just take breastfeeding away and say no, because that psychologically will negatively affect your child.
Yeah.
So it's really important to have a plan in place, whether you're replacing breastfeeding with something in a cup, whether you want to continue pumping and give your breast milk to your toddler in a bottle or a sippy cup. That's totally up to you. Maybe you want to cease breastfeeding completely. So then we need to know what else we're replacing it with. And then we also want to make sure that this toddler feels at home with whatever they're getting in place of that. So it's a ton of cuddles, it's a ton of skin to skin, it's
Mhm.
a ton of, back rubs and belly rubs. Maybe it's a breastfeeding doll that you go to the store and have them pick out a milky doll, right? Or a milky truck or something.
Mhm.
Instead of breastfeeding, this is what you get. We get to cuddle with that.
Yeah.
So it's really about framing the psychological component of weaning and making sure that you are mentally ready for it When you wean, your hormones tend to go insane.
Hmm.
So you want to make sure that you're preparing for whatever mood swings and other things that might happen for you as well.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of clients who have weaned and then gone right back to breastfeeding because they
Yeah.
realized that they weren't ready, right?
Yeah.
So it's really important to feel supported and really have a strong plan in place. So that's why I offer a weaning session that's totally separate
Yeah.
because it's a completely different ball game.
Right. Okay, cool. Let's see. So it's also kind of along the same vein, thinking about stopping breastfeeding. How long does it take to stop lactation after you stopped breastfeeding?
That's different really for everybody as well. I mean, I know some moms who have completely stopped breastfeeding, but if they go
Mhm.
to stimulate their breasts, they still have milk,
Mm.
right? So, and that can be years later.
Oh, wow.
You can, yeah, because honestly, your body is always prepared to be pregnant again.
Yeah,
Once you've done it, your body knows what to do. It's like muscle memory. So some
right.
people never stop lactating. They can stimulate and relactate even after weaning if they want
Wow,
to.
super interesting.
But it typically takes like 6 to 8 weeks for your body to kind of figure out and adjust to no longer increasing that prolactin and oxytocin
Yeah,
by the reduction of stimulation. So about 6 to 8 weeks, you should expect that if you're no longer stimulating and you've been really consistent with that, you can expect your hormones to kind of level out and then for you to not have as much milk or for your body to no longer be ready to produce.
yeah,
That's kind of typical, but again, every body is different. Every set of boobs is different.
yeah.
Every boob in a set is different, right? So
Yeah.
we don't really know what's going to happen to you until you
Mhm.
try it and find out.
Okay, cool. Going back to still like breastfeeding, and limitations around it is what this question
Mm.
is really about. So, yeah, can I still breastfeed if I'm sick? And also thinking about things like certain diets or like alcohol, things like that. What sort of limitations are there around that?
I love these questions. What I tell my clients always is enjoy your life,
Yeah.
live your life, eat whatever you want, drink whatever you want. Like,
Hmm.
you are not giving your baby any food allergies. They are not allergic to your breast milk. Like,
Yeah.
stop freaking out about that. Okay. There are
Hmm.
so many myths around foods and alcohol when you're breastfeeding. Um, Such a minimal amount of alcohol passes into breast milk. You cannot get your baby drunk, okay? There is no need to pump and dump.
I feel like they look kind of drunk after they breastfeed.
They get milk drunk for
Yeah.
sure, yes, but you are not, if you drink a beer or you have a couple glasses of wine, like your
Hmm.
baby is not drunk, okay?
Yeah.
There's so much fear around that. Such a little amount of alcohol gets
Hmm.
into your breast milk. What's really important is for you to do any and everything in moderation,
Yeah.
for you to make sure you are not partying so hard that you cannot hold your child,
Mm.
okay? Like, I don't want any of that. I
Yeah.
wanna make sure that you are awake and aware enough to breastfeed your baby if needed. So, limit your alcohol use. There's no
Mhm.
need for that while you're breastfeeding, right? But if you feel like a glass of wine or a beer is gonna help you calm down, that's protecting your mental health, right?
Yeah.
So, do whatever you feel like you need to do. Alcohol is not gonna harm your baby.
Okay.
If you can drive, you can breastfeed,
Yeah.
basically, is the rule. As
Okay.
far as diets are concerned, eat whatever you want.
Mhm.
Spicy foods, what else? Dairy, all that stuff, like green leafy vegetables, anything you want to eat. A baby pulls the nutrients that it needs in breast milk through your body. It literally is a filtration system if you
Mhm.
think about it. So your baby can get whatever nutrients and calories it needs from whatever diet you are intaking. You can literally live on like cheesecake and in and out if you want, and you're still giving your baby everything they need. Breast
Yeah.
milk is amazing.
Okay.
And then as far as breastfeeding when you're sick, 100% do that because your breast milk is creating antibodies and
Mm.
antimicrobial properties while you're sick. You might
Right.
see your breast milk change color while you're
Mm.
sick because all of those proteins and antibodies that need to be created to protect your baby's immune system are being built through that filtration system because your body knows that you're sick.
Yeah.
So it's going to protect your baby. It also just helps you while you're sick to keep your baby close because it limits the number of steps you need to take in order to feed your baby. So if you're sick, lay down with your baby, take care of yourself, relax, and just go on a breastfeeding honeymoon until you feel better.
Okay, cool.
Honestly, that's what you should do. It's extremely healthy and highly recommended for you to breastfeed while you're sick.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I remember I saw this viral TikTok of it was a mom holding up like a margarita in front of her baby stroller and the caption was I've been waiting 9 months for this.
Yes. Yes,
And it's
girl.
like the baby and
Enjoy
the
your
margarita.
life. Yes, you deserve this, Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Live your life. You got this
Yeah.
baby here. You are working hard to feed this baby. Do what you wanna do, okay? As
Yeah.
long as you're awake and aware. That's what I
Right.
say.
Okay,
Live your
cool.
life.
What do you think is the best position to breastfeed in?
Side lying.
Okay.
That's my fave.
Yeah. So like
Side
this.
lying is a game changer. Yeah. So basically, you are, say this is your couch, right?
Mhm.
And you're going to breastfeed on the right side. You
Yeah.
would lay down on this side, have a pillow wedged between your shoulder and your head, your right arm under the pillow, right?
Mhm.
You have your baby here. You roll your baby towards you. You use this hand to compress the nipple and roll towards the baby to latch.
Mhm.
Once that baby's latched, you pull them close to you. They're belly to belly on their side as well and you knock out, go to sleep.
Yeah.
It's like the safest way to feed and sleep with your baby. This
Okay.
shoulder blade, I always teach my clients to have the pillow between their head and their shoulder. Yeah, right? This is my
Yeah.
shoulder.
Yeah.
This is my head.
Yeah.
Okay. So you put the pillow between you with your arm underneath. This shoulder blade is not going to allow you to roll over on your baby
Right.
because obviously that's everyone's biggest fear.
Yeah.
I'm going to suffocate my baby. They can't breathe. I'm going to roll over. There's SIDS, blah, 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 right? All
Mhm.
those thoughts go through our heads. This shoulder blade is not going to allow you to do that. And your baby is so close that the second they unlatch or they move or they do anything, you're going to wake up.
Yeah.
It's your natural alarm clock. So side lying is a game changer. It's the way that I fed Nico like so frequently when we were at home because it also trains your brain. Like breastfeeding should be relaxing. It should be
Yeah.
comfortable. It should be enjoyable, It should feel good. It also gives you like an aerial view of your baby and then when they stop, they just look up at you and they gaze and it's just the most beautiful thing.
Oh, I love
So,
that.
yeah, I have so many pictures of my clients side lying. I teach everyone that, regardless of what concern I'm meeting them for.
Yeah. Okay. How much does it cost to see a lactation consultant?
Oh, that depends. I mean, it depends on what area you're in. So, out here in LA, things are heavily expensive.
Mhm.
I look at my services kind of like they're a boutique service, but I never turn anyone away due to inability to pay.
Mm.
So it's really just about expressing your need. What
Yeah.
can we do? What's your budget if you can't afford my services? My in home sessions last 2 hours to 2.5 hours, and they're $300. If I'm traveling more than 20 miles, you pay an additional travel fee of $50.
Mm.
So, but that comes with like a lifetime of support as
Mhm.
well. So, if you think about it, learning how to feed your baby is kind of priceless.
Yeah.
So, it really depends on where you live, what insurance you have. I'm a provider partner with the Lactation Network. This is another plug. So, you can plug your insurance into the Lactation Network and
Cool.
they'll pay me directly and use your insurance. And the Affordable Care Act of, I'm not even going to pretend to know what year it came. I think it was
During
20,
Obama's presidency, some point.
right? Like
Yeah.
2006 or something?
Yeah. Probably after I think it
After
was
that.
yeah, 2008
8.
to 2016 it would have been during that time.
Yes. So the Affordable Care Act says everyone gets lactation support.
Yeah.
You can literally get up to 6 sessions. And I think the Lactation Network will bill it for even more if you need more
Mhm.
support. So plug your insurance in the Lactation Network. If you go to my website, I have a link that takes you directly there and pairs you with me. So you don't even have to think about price.
Yeah.
I'm also currently trying to get contracted with Medi-Cal so that I
Wow.
can help Medi-Cal patients.
Cool. Yeah, I know TRICARE just started covering doula support.
Yes, yes, and
Yeah.
so did Medi-Cal.
Mm.
So
Cool.
really, really important to just know what your insurance offers and
Yeah.
then talk to me because I know what your insurance offers. So
Yeah.
it's all about just making that phone call and connecting. If you're a private pay patient and you can afford that, by all means, do it. But if you
Yeah.
need to use your insurance, by all means, call me and let's talk about it and figure out how I can work with you.
Okay. I love that.
But it ranges, virtual sessions are more, they're less expensive.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Cool. Somewhat related, but where can you find a list of in-network lactation consultants?
in network means calling the customer care line on the back of your insurance card.
Okay.
So you can do that. You can also go through, like I said, the Lactation Network is a very useful resource for that.
Okay. Awesome. When is the best time to start searching for a lactation consultant if you're currently pregnant?
If you're currently pregnant.
Okay. Yeah.
Like anytime.
Okay.
Anytime.
Any
Because
trimester?
yeah, any trimester, because you want to meet somebody that you like,
Yeah.
right? It's just like finding a pediatrician after your baby's born. You want
Mhm.
somebody that you can trust, that you connect with. Like I said, I'm a little rough around the edges. I got some tattoos. I tend to cuss sometimes. Like, if that's not your vibe, that's not your vibe. You need to
Mm.
find somebody who is, right? So I'm all about human connection and I'm all about creating relationships that are based on energy. When you're
Yeah.
pregnant, your energy is high. Your
Mhm.
emotions are high. So you want to make sure that you're connecting with somebody that you feel really safe with.
Right.
It's an extremely vulnerable time.
Yeah.
So anytime you can start making those phone calls and building your support team, whether it's a midwife, a doula, a lactation consultant, a pediatrician, make those calls now while you're pregnant.
Okay.
100%. Any trimester.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I would like working with you because I like how direct you are. And I feel like you're so confident with your knowledge that it makes me feel like you know what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be lying to you about everything right now, and you would never
Well,
know.
you say it confidently.
You would never know.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I
for
mean, I
sure.
think there's a lot to be said about somebody who can also say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I tell my clients all the time after our session, if you text me a question and I don't have the answer, I'll find it for you.
Right.
I'm very, very honest about my scope of practice. And like I said, lactation is my lane. If you need something else, I'll help you find it. But I'm
Yeah.
not going to pretend to be that if I'm not,
Yeah.
So
Is there any medication that can make someone lactate or would help them increase their milk supply?
mm, yes. Domperidone, I think is what it's
Okay.
called. So that can assist with induction of lactation, induced lactation. Adoptive parents will go this route. So you can
Mm,
breastfeed your child if you have adopted them. I've helped a
interesting.
couple people do that, and it is the
Yeah.
most beautiful thing to experience.
That's super
Okay. So
interesting.
you can breastfeed. You don't need ovaries to breastfeed. A lot of people don't realize that. All you
Hmm.
need is milk ducts, and
Yeah.
everyone has them, even
Even then.
men.
Yeah.
Yes, even
Yeah.
men. So I always look at my dads and I'm like, it's a little bit more expensive, but I could teach you how to breastfeed too if you want. That's like my
Wow.
favorite joke to tell.
Have you ever had dads prefer it over the mom?
No,
Okay.
no, not yet. And I'm
Yeah.
like waiting for a dad to take me up on it because I
Yeah.
really want to
What about like
try.
gay
But
surrogate parents?
yeah, 100%. We just pick who's going to do the main job and then
Mhm.
what the partner wants to do. We talk about pronouns, we talk about names, we talk
Yeah.
about preferences and whatever you want to go with. I'm here. Sometimes I've had two lesbian moms breastfeed.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. The baby latches on and tells your breast through its saliva what to do.
Yeah.
So they're going to get what they need whether you want one parent to do it or both.
Wow.
So, like I said, I mean,
Interesting.
whatever breastfeeding looks like, I'm down. Let's do
Yeah.
it. Let's do it.
Have you seen the show New Girl?
Yes.
Yeah, that reminds me of how Schmidt always talks about how,
I love
like,
Schmidt. Oh my God.
yeah,
I feel like he's my spirit animal. I swear.
yeah,
Yeah.
he can't be around cats because they always lick his nipples. And there's like a whole scene of these little kittens licking his nipples.
Yes. I mean, it's that. It's
Yeah.
the same thing. Everybody has a milk line that goes from their fourth intercostal nerve all the way down through their nipples, all the way down through their pelvic area.
Yeah.
So if you're a guy and you want to get this flowing, we can try,
You can breastfeed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. If there's enough adipose tissue there and we got a nipple to latch onto,
You can
by
be
all
Schmidt.
means, let's do it. You can be Schmidt. Yes.
Okay, awesome. What are the 4 stages of breastfeeding?
Oh, God. These are like such scientific names. Okay, so basically, mammogenesis is the development of your breast, right? That
Mhm.
starts in utero.
Mhm.
So, mammogenesis, you're developing breast tissue, you're developing the structure of a breast, right? Then I look at lactogenesis 1 as
Mhm.
the delivery of the placenta, your progesterone drops, you have colostrum. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you move into lactogenesis 2, or like galactopoiesis is what it's
Mm.
called, and that's like the maintenance of breast milk after you've transitioned from colostrum to copious, white, watery, beautifully flowing breast milk, right?
Yeah.
That's the maintenance of your milk supply. And then there's involution, which is weaning.
Okay.
And weaning milk, a lot of people don't know because you're spacing out these feedings. So these feedings become very intentional, especially for a toddler who may be weaning. They go to the breast when they know that they really need it.
Mhm.
It's very intentional. Either it's for comfort, they got hurt and they want to breastfeed, right? Because breastfeed is a natural analgesic, so it relieves
Yeah.
pain. You can also use it as a topical solution to help with
Mhm.
pain. So a toddler feeds very intentionally, and weaning milk, because it's so spaced out, is very similar to colostrum. So
Mm.
you're kind of like going back to the beginning as far as the antimicrobial properties and the antibodies and the things that are in there protecting your toddler's immune system. So that's involution.
Okay.
So I hope I,
Yeah, no, that was really
explained that
comprehensive.
accurately. Okay, good. Good. It always trips me up because those words are so freaking big, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the Galactica one.
Yes, galactagogue is my
Yeah,
favorite one. When I
Galactica.
learned galactagogue, I was like, that sounds like you're going to another planet or
Yeah,
something. It's so weird.
definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. So I know a lot of dads are curious about how they can get involved in the breastfeeding process. If
Mm.
they're, I know you mentioned they can even breastfeed themselves, but if they're not looking to breastfeed, how can they help support?
They can literally do everything else.
Yeah.
Like, they can literally position the baby for the mom. They can bring
Mhm.
the mom what she needs to be nourished and hydrated. They can burp the baby. They can bond with the baby skin to skin. They can get the baby ready for bed. They can soothe the baby and put him
Mhm.
to sleep. They can contact nap and sleep with the baby. They can literally do everything else. So anytime I have a dad who's present at a session, I
Mhm.
always teach them different ways they can hold and soothe the baby. I really, really promote that connection
Yeah.
because it also, it helps dads feel really involved. And one thing to remember about dads is that they typically go back to work before mom does.
Mhm.
Okay. They're the providers. They've been taught that that's their job. It's a very masculine trait, right? That they have to fulfill,
Yeah.
and they tend to kind of lose that connection. I've written a post all about that. And the last thing I want a dad to feel is that he's no longer part of what's happening at the home when he's gone.
Right.
I don't want him to feel like he shuts that door and that switch turns off because he's at work and he's
Mhm.
no longer present, right? I want him to walk back through that door and feel like he's been a part of this the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's just a natural transition. So that's really what I love working with dads on because they're so, so important and we don't give them enough credit.
Right.
And some of them are freaking amazing. Like, I've been
Yeah.
blessed to meet so many great fathers who are just so connected to these babies. And the last thing I want them to feel is that that's lost when they go out to
Yeah.
fulfill this, societal requirement that they
Yeah.
have. It's just, it's BS. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think in the US, the average paternity leave is, like, less than a week,
yeah,
so it's crazy.
yeah, yep.
Um, okay, awesome. I know this is kind of a more precise question, but how much milk does a baby get from 10 minutes of breastfeeding?
Oh, God, that's like such a loaded question. I can't answer that.
Okay.
It would have to be
It
a
was a
weighted
highly Googled
feeding.
one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because pediatricians are promoting 10 to 15 minutes on each breast, and
Yeah.
that's not a thing.
Okay.
You got to leave a baby there as long as they want to work their magic, right?
Right.
So during a session, if you wanted to time it, we could weigh the baby before, put them on for 10 minutes, and then weigh them after and see what they take in. But it really depends on their oral anatomy and how that's matching up with your breast anatomy. And
Mhm.
every baby's different. So I can't really give you like
Yeah.
a set amount. We don't know what's going on in there when they're
Right. So
latched.
it just depends kind of when they naturally stop.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Another common question is what foods should you eat when breastfeeding? I know you kind of mentioned just like do your
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, do your thing, eat what you normally eat, eat what you
Yeah.
ate when you were pregnant. Also, there are some galactagogues, it's that word that I love, that
Yeah.
are lactogenic foods.
Okay.
So things like garlic.
Mm.
I have an entire reel on my Instagram about garlic. I still ingest crushed garlic. It's so good for you and it's lactogenic. So if
Mhm.
you're going to a sushi restaurant, get the garlic edamame because you never know, like 2 hours later, you might be like, "Ooh, okay."
Yeah.
Garlic is highly lactogenic. And then oats. What are some other ones? Almonds.
Mm.
I know I'm missing like the most basic ones because I was put on the spot. But there are, there's lists out there, and it's
Yeah.
really about understanding what works for you and not overwhelming yourself with those things. I've had clients who have been like eating this and taking this supplement and doing this protein shake and da 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 da. Like
Yeah.
coconut water is another great one. That's something you can
Mm.
just kind of introduce and add to your diet regularly. It's nothing
Right.
you need to stress about. But there are foods out there that will support your milk supply without you having to purchase insanely priced supplements
Yeah.
that don't even work for everybody,
Yeah.
Fenugreek is something that should be addressed as well. Fenugreek is
Mm.
highly marketed to pregnant people. It's very easy to harvest. It's something that's really accessible around our country, and it's in a lot of lactogenic supplements.
Hmm.
Fenugreek is something that I avoid because it tends to create negative side effects for baby and for
Oh,
mom. It
okay.
creates a lot of gas, it creates a lot of discomfort.
Yeah.
Some moms start to sweat and smell like maple syrup, and it's just
Hmm.
disgusting. It
Interesting.
can cause diarrhea in the mom. So
Yeah.
it's just something that I stay away from, and it's something that's heavily, heavily marketed to parents.
Okay. What
So it's
is
good to know.
fenugreek?
It's an herb.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's an herb. And then there's other stuff that you shouldn't take, like peppermint. You
Yeah.
shouldn't drink peppermint while you're breastfeeding.
Okay.
There's some resources out there that I trust, and if you wanted to post something or, ask me like what's a trusted resource for it, I could send you some lists.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, and then we can post them. We'll post them in the notes below the episode.
Yes, no, we can for
Yeah.
sure. Okay, cool. I have 2 more questions. So,
Okay. I
can
love
you
this. I could do this all day.
I do
I'm
too.
telling
No,
you.
I'm learning a
Yeah.
lot. Can you get pregnant if you're lactating?
1000%.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you don't want to, you better watch out.
Okay.
If you're not using something else, yes, you can
Yeah.
get pregnant. And once your period comes back, make sure that you're tracking it so that you know when you're ovulating if you don't want to get pregnant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
And also, what are the 3 stages of lactation? Okay,
A lot of
awesome.
some people say that there's 3, some people say that there's 5. I mean,
Right.
I think it's just important for people to know that there are stages to this
Yeah.
thing. You got the stage 1, which is colostrum. You got the stage 2, which is transition. You got the stage 3, which is maintenance, and you got the stage 4, which is involution. And the
Right.
entire time your hormones are adjusting to every phase.
Yeah.
So don't go into breastfeeding thinking you're going to pop your baby on and you're just going to have these beautiful flowing rivers of white milk, and that's what
Yeah.
it's going to be the whole time. You're going to go through many, many stages of growth and development with breastfeeding and with your baby, and it can really be a beautiful thing to watch as long as you're stimulating and producing enough to get yourself through those transitions successfully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, my last question is just where can people find you? I know you chatted about your website, but also your
Yeah.
socials. I feel like people may not be able to tell from this episode that you have a big Instagram following, which is super cool.
Oh, thank
So
you.
yeah, if you
Yeah,
just
I
want to give a
love
quick
my
plug.
Instagram community. I am so like that's the only one that I really have. I have Instagram and I love it, and I'm already like overwhelmed trying to manage it and stay on
Yeah.
top of all of it. So I don't have many social accounts, but I do have Instagram. There's a ton of information on there. All my
Cool.
services are listed. So I'm at IBCLC Los Angeles
Hmm.
on Instagram, and then my website is the same,
Okay.
ibclclosangeles.com. And you can fill out an inquiry form right on my website, and I will get back to you within 24 hours, and we can talk about what's going on and the best way I think I can help you. And then also the Lactation Network. You can find me through there as well.
Okay. Awesome. How did you grow your Instagram community?
Oh my God, it's been like 8 years of it.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
started, I had a business partner. We used to have a really successful practice called Goldilocks.
Mm.
I had a business partner whose name is also Candice. and
Cool.
she just had her 3rd baby, and she's at home with him right now, so hi,
Aw.
Candice. And we were best friends, and we started that business, and it was great, and then moving into her pregnancy and me taking on different types of services,
Mhm.
we decided to kind of branch out, but that Instagram has actually just been rebranded, so that
Oh,
was the
cool.
Goldilocks Instagram,
Okay.
but I kinda took it over and gave it a new vibe and
Yeah.
rebranded it, and, so now it's mine.
Okay.
So it's
Awesome.
at IBCLC Los Angeles. And I think growing the Instagram really just comes from like human connection. Like
Yeah.
I want to respond to everybody's DMs. I want to respond to everyone's comments. I want to answer questions. Like it's really me there. It's really,
Yeah.
really me writing everything and giving you my perspective. And, some people fall off because, like I said, I got the tattoos and I tend to cuss. And, that's not for everybody. I'm not for everybody.
That's
I have,
funny.
a larger than life personality. And sometimes I say things that, are not
Yeah.
popular opinions. But I like to start conversations and I like to really interact with people. So I think
Yeah.
that's why people gravitate towards it. That
Okay.
it's a safe space for you to just say what the fuck you want to say, right? So that's really what I'm trying to
Yeah.
promote, and it's really allowed me to be free and really show who I am, and if you are down with me, then I'm ready to get to work.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much for taking the time to be here today. I really
Of
appreciate it. It
course.
was
Thank you
super
so much for
informative.
having me. This was so much
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.